all aware of this harsh reality, recounting the statistics time and time again. Nearly 1 billion people in Africa with no other choice but to rely on polluting cooking methods with devastating consequences to the climate, local environment, women's health, and livelihoods. But amidst these challenges, as we've seen here today, there is hope. We are at a pivotal moment where we can finally, collectively, acknowledge that clean cooking intersects with the most pressing global issues of our time: energy access, public health, sustainable development, gender equality, and climate change, and take action that unlocks transformative, systemic change. For those of us who've worked in this sector for many years, we understand the power of awareness raising and how events like these can bring new stakeholders into the fold. But I sincerely hope that we are nearing the point where we no longer need to justify that this is a challenge worth addressing, that the climate and environmental impacts are real, that the health and well-being of Africa's women matters. Let us stop reciting the negative impacts and realize a world in which every household has access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable cooking solutions. This isn't just a dream, it's an achievable goal within our grasp, and we know how to do it. We know that a dedicated task force or delivery unit can accelerate national clean cooking transitions. So we must support the self-determination of African governments and provide the resources and finance for implementation. We know that carbon markets are crucial for scaling access and improving affordability. Clean cooking carbon projects are real and are happening all over the world. We need buyers to commit to purchasing the highest quality, highest integrity credits for a fair price. We know that clean cooking can unlock progress on other agendas like climate, nature, health, gender equality, food systems, and sustainable cities. We need a paradigm shift towards holistic, systems-level partnerships that unite diverse stakeholders to address all dimensions of this challenge. And we know that we cannot do this alone. We need to elevate the voices of those most affected, the women and youth who bear the brunt of this crisis. They are not data points or beneficiaries. They are leaders and change makers within their communities. We must empower them with tools, resources, and opportunities to drive the clean cooking revolution forward. This is not a time for half measures or incremental progress. We need bold, transformative action that puts clean cooking at the center of our global agenda. Together, we can unleash the immense potential of clean cooking to improve lives, empower communities, and safeguard our planet for future generations. Let us seize this moment and commit ourselves to nothing less than a clean cooking revolution, one that leaves no one behind. Thank you. We are privileged today to have two fantastic panels of leaders and experts with us. The first panel will focus on creating a broad coalition of support for clean cooking, and the second will discuss how to advance the clean cooking agenda in industry. At this summit, we are elevating the importance of policy and finance to make meaningful progress on clean cooking access. In doing so, we can only emphasize the importance of partnerships in advancing clean cooking access within the global energy and climate agenda, underlining their role in policy development and finance collaboration. We will explore this panel, we'll explore this theme with the panel ahead. It's my pleasure to introduce our distinguished panelists to you. Please join me on the stage. Honorable Ibrahim Motala, Minister of Energy for Malawi. Her Excellency Dr. Baranda, Minister of Public Health and Fight Against AIDS, Burundi. Honorable Carl Slattern-Wijn, Minister of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform, Namibia. Her Excellency Samiru Bouama, Second Lady of Ghana and Clean Cooking Alliance Ambassador. Dr. Anubra Ghosh, Chief Executive Officer, Council on Energy, Environment and Water. And Stephen Singer, Senior Advisor, Global Energy Policy, Climate Action Network International. Do you need it? Do we have translation? Yes. Thank you all so much for joining us. It's always such a delight to see all of you here on this panel, and specifically for a conversation that we will have around the important role of partnerships, which we do think is a critical role to make sure that collectively we are addressing the access to clean cooking issue in a way that doesn't duplicate and replicate efforts, but really focuses on what efficiently we can all do together as we move forward in the next couple of years. So it's my honor to start with you, Honorable Minister. How can clean cooking connect to the broader agenda on health, gender, environment, finance, and climate? How can we reach across sectors to foster true collaboration?
Good evening. I think it's a good luck for this panel that we are coming towards to an end, like summing up what has been discussed since morning. Let me take this opportunity to thank the organizers of this summit. It is coming at the right time. And let me ask the audience, talk to the one who is on your left and you on your right, that you are going to make this world to be a better world to be. I'll begin by quoting an African proverb, the importance of collaboration, coordination, and working together for one goal. And I quote, "One hand cannot clap." In Swahili, kidole kimoja kivunji chawa. In Arabic, al-yadu wahidu la tusaffiq. I could go on and on, even in French. But allow me to say the importance of collaboration. Because the issue of clean cooking is a cross-cutting issue. We've been talking about health issues. But let me take you to the public hospitals, how the meal is being made for the patients. Because of using biomass, the food is not well prepared. The patient went with another disease, comes back with the extra disease, diarrhea, you name it, because the food is not well prepared. Let me take you again to our prisons. Our prisons are not correctional services. They're punishments. It's a hell. Because our prisons are using biomass, and the food is not well prepared, especially when the meal is beans, which take time to get ready. Let me take you to public universities and also boarding schools, where students' meal is not well prepared because of using biomass. I can go on and on. This issue is very, very important, and time has come where coordination on issues of health, where women, girls are spending miles, waking up very early in the morning, searching for fuel wood. And it is not right. That girl who is waking up early in the morning, 3 a.m., doing the chores at home, looking for fuelwood, and can perform as the child who is just studying, staying at a home where there is a lead bulb. Not alone health issues, but also gender-based violence. A woman wakes up 2 a.m. searching for fuelwood, and she ends up coming late, and the husband asks the questions, where were you? Not alone that, the mother is with the baby, a girl child, and they are predators within the forests. Raping is taking place. Women to bring food on the table. For that, we need our ministries. I'm very glad that I've seen ministries of energy, ministry of natural resources, ministry of economy, ministry of public transport, all ministries. Collaboration is very, very important so that we can end this injustice which is happening to our women and girls.
Thank you so much. With that, I will go to you. Thank you. Doctor, are you okay with translation? Yes, okay. Your Excellency, you speak to the perspective of public health. How does clean cooking connect to the broader agenda on health? And in what way can partnerships around clean cooking be impactful for both access to energy and public health?
Thank you. I am going to speak in French. Parce que nous avons
Since we only have 3 minutes, I'll only mention 2 little points, give you first a bit of context about how cooking, unclean cooking or dirty cooking, how it has a negative impact on public health. Well, in my country, more than 90% of households cook their food within their homes. And since cooking is done within the home using wood, this has a negative impact. A negative impact on certain prevention mechanisms. So, for example, a mosquito net which is covered in insecticide to fight malaria is negatively impacted by cooking. When you cook indoors using wood, there are little sparks that are created, little embers that will burn holes in the mosquito net. And it also creates smoke that will reduce the efficiency of the insecticide that the mosquito net is impregnated in. And so it reduces the positive impact of the mosquito net to prevent malaria. With the support of the PMI initiative, the American Initiative to Fight Malaria, we've launched 2 initiatives that have led to these conclusions, because we were looking for the reasons why malaria isn't going down in Burundi, whereas mosquito net coverage, if you will, is so high. So cooking indoors has a negative impact on the physical integrity of mosquito nets and on the efficiency of the insecticide. So that's an example to show you how inadequate cooking has a negative impact on public health in my country, at least. And as for deforestation, which is also linked to the massive use of wood, you know the impacts are very well known. We've been talking about them since this morning. And this has had impacts on floods in my country, with the impacts on the spread of diseases such as cholera, and so on and so forth. So to fight this challenge, the government of Burundi has launched a large program in order to change the means of cooking by setting up a large-scale project that consists in cleaning peat so that it will create less smoke, and it can be used within households as well as in school cafeterias and boarding schools. So it's not the sort of energy that other countries use, but it is a natural resource we dispose of, and we want to improve it. And if there's partners who are interested, we'd like to invite them to support us in this large project, because we do have this local resource that we want to improve. Then there is a gas project that is mainly used in the private sector. The Burundi Investment Code allows private investors to invest in this sector. And this conference has been an opportunity for me to see what's available in order to be able to develop this sector in our country too. So if investors want to come and invest in gas, we also have certain investment opportunities under Burundian law. So that is what I can share with you in these 3 minutes you've given me. In this sector, we've been working in the One Health system so that all the different ministries that are involved in these sectors, such as agriculture, environment, energy, mines, the education ministry, can contribute to improve cooking methods and improve the health of our people. So that is what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doctor. That was a really interesting connection to a different health impact that I hadn't even thought about before. So I really appreciate you bringing it up with the malaria nets as well. That was really very, very helpful and very insightful for us. I will go to you next, Honorable Minister. In what way can the promotion of clean cooking be integrated with interconnected policies and finance agenda specifically concerning health, gender, equality, environmental sustainability, financing, and climate action?
Thank you very much. And first of all, we want to share with those that said this initiative is to be welcomed. It is an important moment, and hopefully this summit will elevate it to its justified position. And we are saying it because it is an initiative called Clean Cooking, but in fact it is addressing environmental, developmental, financial and energy issues. So it is in fact a developmental issue that tries to attack and eradicate poverty. So it is an all-inclusive topic. We support it. Now, Madam Chairman, Namibia is having the ambition to become an energy hub in the Southern African region. We have recently found significant oil and gas resources, making us potentially the third largest oil producer on the continent. We have rolled out a very aggressive green hydrogen program, and we are on the forefront of that with of the best wind and solar resources globally. And we have the second largest uranium mine and are in the top 5 uranium producers on the globe. Now, our economic fortunes, our ability to create wealth in a poor country significantly hinges on our ability to exploit these resources. So whatever policies we derive, we should not prohibit us from utilizing these resources. You should help us to use them smarter and better and with less carbon emissions. But if we are deprived of the opportunity that the wealthy countries had to become rich, that would be an unfair proposition for us. But we are prepared, of course, to do a better job with them than you have done. The second issue I want to raise is that, yes, clean cooking and the energy agenda is one important point. But to solve poverty, we need to have a more diverse and a broader approach. The effect of carbon emissions on poor people is not that the air becomes bad. It is most of the time, 90% of the effect is on the water cycle. They have no water, they have no clean water, they have no sanitation. So if we want to solve clean cooking, we must also at the same time solve availability of clean water, availability of clean sewage. In fact, we must not perpetuate the situation that women are there to cook food. It is a gender issue. We want and we must include the empowerment of women as a centerpiece of this theme that we call clean cooking. Second, and sorry, I have one last point, and that's on the financing side. The situation, as described by my colleague from Malawi, is we are talking to a target group that is very poor. They have no money. So if we force them to borrow, that's not an option. Our countries are poor. We are debt strangled. So borrowing to implement green cooking is not a good option. We have to be more innovative. We must bring about free services to these poor people. And I believe that we cannot have a carbon credit scheme that merely and only targets those that are already polluting by reducing that pollution. We must also target those that protected their carbon sinks, because if we don't, these carbon sinks become valueless for them and are at risk. So it is fairer to also include in the carbon credit a carbon sink reward for those that looked after carbon sinks and that are still functioning. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Minister. I think you specifically highlighted the right for self-determination for African countries, but also the whole thought around fairness and equity, and if we continue to build out the carbon markets, how important it is to really be very thoughtful about that and not just say it, but actually do it. So thank you. With that, I go to Your Excellency. Could you please share with us from your experiences in Ghana, what are some very impactful collaborations that you have seen within your country, between countries and different sectors that you could speak to?
Thank you. So let me start by saying that in Ghana, we have about 40% access to clean cooking. And of that 40%, in the urban areas constitutes 45% LPG access. And unfortunately, in the rural areas, it's about 8%. Now, we're trying to improve that. So we have the National Cylinder Recirculation Model, which aims to increase penetration by 70% by the year 2030 and double the rural numbers, increase it by 50%. We also have established 2 test labs for cook stoves and clean cooking fuels with the support of the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, and the Clean Cooking Alliance. Ghana also has adopted 3 ISO clean cook stoves and clean cooking standards, as well as the National Clean Cooking Strategy and Investment Prospectus, which is done with the support of the World Bank. And we've also rolled out the National Just Energy Transition Policy with the support of SE for All. So partnerships are really important, and these are just a few of the partnerships that we've had moving on. But I remember a few years ago when we were convening to discuss Ghana's clean cooking sector and how to move it forward, the question was, where was it going to sit? Because the obvious thing is that it's an energy issue. But as we know now, it's not just an energy issue. It's a health issue, it's an education issue, it's a gender issue, it's a climate action issue, it's an empowerment issue. So we had to bring together all of the ministers of those sectors to have a national clean cooking strategy because each of their policies impacted that. And that's why we've been able to be successful, because at 40%, we are the highest in West Africa and the third highest in Sub-Saharan Africa. And I'd like to commend the CCA for pushing the delivery units, which are technical support for governments at the highest level so that we can incorporate all these targets and goals in our national planning and development. And with our collaboration, it has to be international as well. So not just intra, but international. And as I mentioned earlier, we have to share our experiences. I mean, we have to share research and standardization. It's not right, or it shouldn't be, we shouldn't waste time researching what our neighbors have already researched, for example. So it's important that we do that. And of course, private sector investments is what will drive this conversation. We've seen the evolution of technology. We've seen how innovation has driven down prices. And really, the adaptation of these technologies, affordability is at the heart of it. So without being able to afford it, people cannot adopt the technology. So it's important to encourage, incentivize private sector so that they can continue to innovate to drive down the prices. And of course, the development agencies should also play a coordinating role. But what is really, really at the heart of what I do, and I've been at this for several years, is that we need to honor our commitments. We come to conference after conference and summit after summit, and there are pledges and there are commitments that are announced to wide applause, thunderous applause, and everybody's excited, and then nothing, or precious little. And we really hope this will be the last summit that will be had. So the commitments must be honored. And finally, let us treat this subject as an urgent matter, because it is urgent and we need to act now. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I think it's an excellent point, and why it's so great to hear that the IEA indeed will be tracking these commitments, and that we can look forward to hearing where they are and how they were dispersed and what happened and what the impact was. So I do think it's really important that we all collectively hold each other accountable for what was promised today, because the promise is nothing without the delivery, as we all know. Having heard from the wonderful experiences in Ghana, may I now turn to you, Dr. Ghosh, and hear from your experiences in India and what you could possibly share around partnerships and what worked really, really well from your perspective and your experiences.
Sure, thank you very much. And first of all, let me thank Dr. Birol, the President of Tanzania, the Prime Minister of Norway, and the President of the African Development Bank for their leadership in convening us all here today. Since time is short, I want to outline 3 ways in which we can think about the kind of collaborations that would be needed. I represent the Council on Energy, Environment and Water, one of the world's leading climate think tanks, but what I really bring to you is the message of collaboration. So idea number 1. You've already heard the India experience. From 2016, about 100 million poor women got access to clean cooking. In the last 8 years, the number of Indian households increased by 21%, but the LPG sales increased by 53%. So this supply side push was about trying to get access to clean cooking. Now, throughout the day, we've heard about the what, and we've heard about the how much in terms of money committed. What I'm bringing to the table is the how. In order to have this huge injection of clean cooking, we got to talk to the doers, the policymakers, the 600 plus field officers, to 25,000 plus private entrepreneurs as LPG distributors. What are their experiences? And at CEW, we've been evaluating this for nearly a decade. So what we would like to offer is serve as a resource center and collaborate with institutions in Africa to take these lessons to create those bespoke solutions. Idea number 2, we've got to connect cooking and clean cooking to climate and clean air. Again, India's experience in driving the clean cooking agenda resulted in a reduction of 480 kilotons of PM 2.5 emissions. That's about nearly 9% of the total PM 2.5 emissions we have. One more issue alongside this is the issue of black carbon. Half of black carbon emissions, which are highly polluting, high global warming potential, come from unclean cooking. Now, how do we take the idea around drawing down black carbon on the back of a clean cooking agenda as part of the broader climate agenda? Again, in India, on a household-by-household basis, just the push for clean cooking has reduced black carbon emissions by about 30%. So again, this is a story that needs to be not just communicated, but we need to have a collaboration between those who work on ambient air quality, indoor air quality, and the development and gender agenda around clean cooking. CEW and the Clean Air Fund came together to create something called Our Common Air, a global commission on clean air, chaired by former Prime Minister of New Zealand, Helen Clark, and former WHO Chief Scientist, Soumya Swaminathan. And in our call to action, we've called for a focus on short-lived climate pollutants, including black carbon. And I think this can be a major driver for the clean cooking agenda. And final idea, we need capacity and catalysts. You've already heard about how India built on its digital public infrastructure, its financial inclusion, to push the clean cooking agenda. So there's a physical story, there's a digital story, and there's a behavior change story. And we need to bring together the actors focused in these areas into our platforms of collaboration. I simply want to conclude by, again, thanking the leadership of those who've convened this conference, but really to remind ourselves that in order to cook food, in order to live, we should not have to die. Therefore, let's build our collaborations on creating centers of knowledge sharing, on connecting cooking to clean air and climate, and focusing on the catalysts and the capacity. Thank you.
Thank you so much also for bringing up black carbon and the really critical role the increasing access to clean cooking plays in sort of the short-lived climate pollutants, specifically black carbon. And I think to all the climate envoys out there, please listen carefully to that message, because for COP29 and COP30, that should be front and center of all of your negotiations and your conversations. So I fully applaud that as well. For our final question, we'll go to Stephen. Could you please speak to the issue of clean cooking, its implications beyond climate policy, and what our role are, or what our international collaboration, what kind of role that should play?
Yeah, thank you very much. And my thank goes also to the organizers and to the IA for this very important conference. And as we talk about collaboration, we talk about radical collaboration, because without collaboration, we don't get anywhere. I think Climate Action Network, just to tell you, we have now 2,003 members in more than 135 countries. All NGOs, big ones, small ones, face groups, climate justice groups, Greenpeace, CARE, Oxfam development groups, etc., etc. So we are arguably the largest NGO or CSO umbrella network on any issue worldwide. We work on all issues, climate, energy, forestry, adaptation, you name it. That doesn't mean the Secretariat, which I belong to, does it. Our members do it. And without coordination, collaboration, we wouldn't get anywhere. We try to do things together. That leaves me sometimes, well, my colleagues as well, in the job of, I would say, herding cats sometimes, but this brings it with it if you work with 2,000 NGOs. That's fine. There's a saying, an African saying I learned from my African colleagues when I was working in Kenya. They said, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to reach your destination, go with others. And as a second saying, I learned from my Arab colleague. And he said, you can carry a camel to the water, but the camel has to drink itself. That means empowering people. We can help, we can finance, and we can educate, but they have to execute, they have to bring the power to themselves, to their communities. I think that's very important. We work with trade unions, we work with face groups, we work with coalitions, with the Arena Coalition, Coalition to Action, etc., etc. We have lots of coalitions, not only NGOs, but CSO at large, academia, etc., etc. Now, coming back to clean cooking, we know the technologies. It's biogas, it's biodigesters. Yes, improved cook stoves have to play a role, we think. Electro cooking has to come in at some point in time. Give an example why. Netherlands has more solar power developed. This very sunny, warm country, Netherlands, has more solar power deployed than entire Africa. Tells you a little bit about the challenge we are facing here. There's enough there. We also believe, and I've been working with ICRAF in Kenya, wonderful institute in Kenya, they look into agroforestry. Agroforestry, local, rural agroforestry for multi-purpose crops, including firewood, but also food crops, fodder for the animals, and the women and the children don't have to run behind that one. Now, on wording on carbon credits. We do not believe in carbon credits because it's a zero-sum game among many other problems. Because when you get carbon credits, you're doing something good, something else can do something bad. This is at best, a zero-sum game. So when you reduce emissions for cooking and other purposes in developing countries, and you don't have the infrastructure in place, then it might be a hoax, because then rich companies, in the north in particular, can increase their emissions or maintain their emissions. It's a zero-sum game. Let's keep that in mind. We have been working with others on alternative sources for financing. I like to say that one, very important. If we would just simply, and the IA knows the numbers, if we would have a price, an upstream price on oil of up to $2 US per barrel, this is much lower than the annual fluctuation of the price, you would generate, just for oil, per year, $25 billion US. If you look into a wealth tax, which is being discussed increasingly in richer countries to address the inequity, the growing inequity, not only between countries, but also among countries, then you would generate lots of money, and this would be also good for other purposes, for water, for overcoming pollutants, etc., etc. Just to give you one example here, is we had learned a couple of days ago in Germany, the data came out that the billionaires in Germany in the last 3 years accumulated more than 500 billion euro equivalents in 3 years during the COVID crisis. 500 billion euros, the billionaires. In the US, the number is much higher. So number is there. And we should not forget that you mentioned poverty. We have the numbers from Bloomberg New Energy Finance and from the World Bank. Currently developing countries, the least developing countries in particular, which are those which have most lack of access to clean energy and to clean cooking, have apparently a debt payment due this year, 2024, of about 400 billion euro equivalents in 1 year, debt payments. That is the kind of thing why we need public funding from the rich countries to bring to clean cooking and to other purposes. Clean funding from clean energy funding from public sources. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And before we wrap up, just a couple of thoughts. I think what this conversation highlights is just how interconnected this issue actually is. Because once you start talking, it's almost like you don't stop. You just keep going to malaria nets, to water management, to soil, to city planning, to thinking about urban infrastructure. It's a conversation that pretty much never ends, which makes it actually a fantastic issue to work on. It makes it complicated, but it actually proves to all of us, and I think to all of us collectively, just how important this summit is and how important it is to be collectively think how carefully about how we're addressing the issue. And the final thing there is like the only way we can do that if we're really, really smart about partnerships. Because the one thing we cannot do without all the commitments that we've heard and the billions that were promised, we can't waste any money. We have no money to waste to actually make sure we're achieving universal access to clean cooking collectively. So let's be really, really smart about these partnerships and the collaboration. Make sure we don't duplicate and replicate things that other people have already figured it out, and collectively move forward to making sure that we're achieving universal access to clean cooking by 2030. So I want to thank my panelists one more time for their very, very thoughtful interventions and contributions to this conversation. And before I ask everybody to leave, I also want to introduce my dear, dear friend, Richard Mungi, the climate envoy from Tanzania, who is going to be moderating the next conversation. So thank you again, and
So, thank you very much, Difna. Thank you, panelists. Dear colleagues, this is the very last panel, so we wish to seek your indulgence. I know we are already out of time, but I think it's really important to hear how to advance the clean cooking agenda in the industries. This is a very, very important issue. It is in the context of the multi-stakeholder partnerships, and I do believe that you will enjoy the discussions from my colleagues. Let me call upon colleagues who are going to be part of this discussion. We have Ryan Legrand, President and the Chief Executive Officer, U.S. Grains, please. You. I have my friend Benoit Araman, the Managing Director, Oryx Gas Tanzania. Please come on board. We have my dear friend Majidin Sekela, who is the Managing Director, CRDB Bank, which operates in Tanzania, DRC, and the Burundi. Then I have my dear neighbor, Martin Kimani, the Chief Executive Officer, MGAS. This morning, and I call upon Ijeoma Isiche, Head of Business Development, Sahara Group. We do also have James Rocker, the CEO and Managing Director, World Liquid Gas Association. And lastly, Ramadian Hassan, Chargé d'Affaires at the Embassy of Indonesia in France. Thank you for joining us. I must say, before I give you the opportunity to speak, I must speak first to express my sincere gratitude to my president, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan. We all agree the championship she has shown, together with the team, our dear colleagues and partners in this, the Norwegian government under the Prime Minister. We also have been working tirelessly with our colleague here, the IEA, also the AFDB. The raising of $2.2 billion has never happened. And I think it's historical and it's a turning moment. And I think the topic we are going to discuss here, the multi-stakeholder partnership in the context of advancing clean cooking agenda in the industries, speaks to that. So, having said that, I want to start with Ryan. And the first question would be, what role should industry play to work with the ongoing efforts in clean cooking access across countries and the region, and where does collaboration make most sense for the impact? I'll start with you.
Great, well, thank you very much for having me today. Thank you all for hanging around this long. I'll try to be brief. When we're talking about industry as it relates to the U.S. Grains Council, we're talking about the American biofuel industry, bioethanol industry in particular. And we represent the American bioethanol industry overseas, and these are commodities traders. that are going to go for the path of least resistance. We're talking about for-profit companies that are looking for the quickest ROI possible. They need a bridge, and they need collaboration. So when it comes to the aspect of collaboration with governments serving as a bridge between industry and government, that's really where we step in. At the Grains Council, our job is to work with U.S. farmers, with the agricultural community, and U.S. and foreign governments to carry out our mission of developing markets, enabling trade, and improving lives. And we do this globally with our experts in Washington, D.C., and at our 9 international offices, and throughout our 29 locations where we have people posted around the world. We bring producers of U.S. corn and bioethanol together with buyers in global markets who have a need for these products. In this context, and as a proponent of the health and the environment, the U.S. Grains Council stands ready to support clean cooking with sustainable supplies of bioethanol that can supplement local production when it is needed. And to get started, we've heard a lot of big numbers today. I don't have a huge number to throw at you, but we're gonna dedicate $1.75 million to advance clean cooking globally, with half of that number is allocated to sub-Saharan Africa, and this number will compound annually over the next 5 years through a series of grants from the U.S. government. We're ready to work in tandem with a network of policymakers responsible for standards and regulations, equipment manufacturers, farm organizations, and educators, as well as the full spectrum of the bioethanol industry value chain of professionals to ignite this initiative. The Council will make it a priority to identify and develop practical policies for the adoption of clean cooking stoves and bioethanol infrastructure development, establish and enhance industry cooperation, offer technical assistance and industry best practices, evaluate domestic feedstocks in each market, and communicate the clean air, environmental, and time-saving benefits of clean cooking with bioethanol. Within the last 2 years, we've signed bioethanol-related memorandums of understanding with Ghana, Mozambique, and Nigeria to enhance the bioeconomy through advancement of clean cooking within these markets. See, I'm out of time. It goes by really quickly. I'll just end by saying that agriculture is the key. We haven't talked a lot about agriculture, but agriculture is the key to solving the world's biggest problems. This includes hunger, disease, and even migration. And as a part of that, biofuels and bioethanol is a catalyst for a better living. Biofuels and agriculture are and always will be connected, and the energy market is the only market that can keep up with innovation in agriculture. You can't just wish and hope that we're going to produce more food and more renewable energy. You can't subsidize your way out of it. You've got to create markets, and that's what the U.S. Grains Council does best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rick Grant. Thank you so much, and of course for the additional 1.7 million annually. I think this is also adding the numbers today. So thank you very much. Now I turn to Benoit. Thank you for joining us today. And from your perspective, how are industry and the solution providers working together to develop clean cooking solutions, and what strategies can be the most impactful?
Thank you, Doctor. First, let me start in saying that the success is into doing and turn noble intention and serious high-level declaration into daily tangible actions is what we do. So how do we demonstrate that the proof is in the pudding, as we say? Well, first, reliable and sustainable investment. We in Oryx Energies have invested for the last 25 years in LPG on the African continent, starting with the Tanzania in the east and Benin on the west. In Tanzania alone, Doctor, since 2015, we have injected $100 million-ish into LPG infrastructure, the last being commissioned 2 weeks ago as a first ever LPG terminal in Zanzibar, allowing Zanzibari population to access now the product at a more affordable cost. We have invested in LPG assets, infrastructure, cylinders to the tune of 4 million cylinders, which allows me to say that Oryx LPG can be found everywhere and at all time in the country at a cheaper price than electricity. The second thing I want to mention in terms of strategy is going through virtuous partnership with public sector, of course. And I want to salute here the initiative that has been taken by government of Tanzania with the REA, Rural Energy Agency initiative that has allowed the implementation of the clean cooking program since the pledge of President Samia Suluhu Hassan. So basically, on our side, since June 2022, we have contributed to the conversion of around about 60,000 street cookers, mamalishe, and then we estimate that at the level of the industry, this virtuous partnership with the government of Tanzania has allowed the industry to reach approximately 150,000 conversion since November, 2022. So the last thing that I want to mention as a successful strategy is about bold commitment to clean energy access. So basically, and this can be taken as a pledge, Oryx Gas Tanzania is now committed to the conversion of 6 million users in Tanzania to cleaner cooking between now and 2034, which represent approximately $8 million investment per year into different assets, including cylinders, to make these things happen. In the rest of the continent, Oryx Energies is committed to the development of the LPG activity throughout the 10 countries where we have a presence, and specifically I would mention the Senegal, where Oryx Energies has invested recently in the LPG sector. I will conclude here and thanking you very much for the rest of the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benoit, for that. Now, Sekela, we know you are operating beyond Tanzania now, in DRC, in Burundi, and from your perspective, as one of the largest banks in Eastern Africa, where do you see the most opportunity for industry and the solution providers to partner up on clean cooking, and what has worked in other sectors that can illustrate a pathway forward?
Thank you very much, and commendable to the organizing committee for this particular event. I think since morning we have listening various presenters, and all have been talking about this particular agenda. And we do believe that since morning we have seen quite significant opportunity. As a commercial bank, possibly my speech will be purely focusing on the few areas, and I will start looking about the value chain. I think the biggest question we need to ask ourselves is whether is the clean cooking framework structure right? Any country must ask that questions. Looking on the stakeholders within the value chain, we have technology provider, we have distributors, we have retailers, we have government, NGOs, and other partners. But the biggest question we have been addressing here is how do we reach those poor farmers, where I'm coming from, my family, my mother, my uncle, who are in the village. And as a bank, today we have heard about $2.2 billion. And now the question is how will the stakeholders access those funds? And since morning when I was listening, I've seen quite significant opportunities arising. But I think most of the presenters have already said about collaborations. It will not be possible without collaborating. If you look, for example, investing in clean cooking solutions, and that means as a bank, we need to work together with research developments, developing solutions, but also supporting those industries who are providing solutions for clean cooking appliances. And the next question is, for example, Tanzania with 61 million populations. And I must commend our president. Recently, they have just launched the 10 years strategy of clean cooking initiatives. And that's where we, as commercial banks, we have to support the initiative. There is a clear underlying element within strategy on how stakeholders should work together. But that does not fit with the current framework in terms of the commercial solutions. And there is a need then to move away from conventional thinking to become more innovative. And there must be a solution-led oriented, which supports the clean cooking solution in terms of lending. The next question is about accessibility and affordability. And that's where the blended financing is required. Today, for those who have pledged for $2.2 billion, that's the funding which needs to be distributed to those who are able to provide solutions for clean cooking. But I think my call to those who has actually pledged is to be flexible in terms of conditions attached, given the fact that politically, we have heard our leaders, they are politically right, they are motivated, they are pushing it. And there must be flexible terms to support those initiatives. And lastly, and I think that is, someone mentioned about vernacular language. Clean cooking, for those who are coming from those rural areas, it may be a challenge for them to adapt. There is a mindset shift. Then awareness is important. As CRB, we have recently, last year, launched Green Bond of 171 billion to support the civil initiatives, and that will also be implemented in Burundi and DRC. So we are welcoming, inviting partners to work together. For those who will be able to provide guarantees, subsidized, so that we can be able to move forward for this agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Majid. And now, my brother, Martin, from the MGAS, the Chief Executive Officer. In what ways can industry and other stakeholders best contribute to your company's vast work on clean cooking access? And what opportunities are there to engage industry further on this work?
Thank you very much. I think I'll start by describing what we are doing, how we are doing it, and this will very well answer the question on where the opportunities are, what we can do together as industry, and how far and how much penetration that this can help us to achieve. I must say that we all understand the implications and the bad effect of using alternative data fuels. That has been very well described since morning. And we have been converted, we understand that as MGAS. And today we have been able to convert just about 400,000 households in under 4 years. And don't forget, this is including piloting our solution, including setting up an organization. And within that short period of time, we have been able to install our cooking kits and solution into 400,000 homes in Kenya and now in Tanzania, starting from this year. That is to mean, in short, we have about 1.7 million lives today that have been transformed, that would have been otherwise using dirtier alternatives. How do we do this? You heard it from our minister earlier in the earlier session, that the challenge we are facing in Tanzania and in Kenya is inability for households to afford the cooking kits. The upfront costs are quite high for the majority of homes, and therefore they resort into living hand to mouth because they can only afford buying energy sources in small bits. We mirrored that model where the other households live by innovating a smart meter, which we fit into a 13-kilo cylinder, connected to a 2-burner stove, and install it in a household without requiring them to pay. They only pay $3, which is their first installment for cooking. So it's not a deposit. So that's the model that we are using, premised on innovation. To enable that to happen, we have invested in an elaborate last mile distribution reverse logistic infrastructure that will help us to enter into homes, pick empty cylinders, replenish them as and when they exhaust a cylinder. Due to all that, or to make that happen, you can imagine the intensity of the investment that we've done. So far, for the 4 years, we have invested $150 million, and we plan to invest another $50 million in the next 12 months to give us an additional 500,000 households. And we have within our scope in the near term to get into 3 additional countries. Someone said that the question we have today is summarized into 3, or the challenge we have today is summarized into 3. 1, it's about money. 2, it's about innovation. 3 is about government policy. We had a very strong delegation from government, from our country and various other African countries. So government policy, I assume, will not be a problem going forward. We have had innovation ourselves. We have a solution today that works, that transmits data, that will make it easy for carbon credit discussions, that will make it easy to assess impact. Therefore, what we need to determine our speed is money. And seated with my dear colleagues here and listening to the colleagues earlier, we have pledged a lot of money today. So let's bring the 3 units together and give heed to the Caralion call, and I can assure you we will be able to create impact as we have desired to do. That's how the industry collaborations, different partners will come together to help us move forward. I want to applaud, as I finish, a move by government of Kenya recently to remove VAT from smart meters. We are importing smart meters today without VAT. I would encourage more other government to follow the same suit so that we can preserve that cash to help us get into more and more households. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you so much. Now, Ms. Isichei, first thank you for agreeing to be part of this gender-insensitive panel, because you are the only lady in this panel. So thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
You're most welcome.
Now, being a lady, and from your perspective, where do you see the most opportunity for the cross-sector collaboration between industry and the solution providers on clean cooking? And what has worked in other sectors that can illustrate a pathway forward?
Thank you very much for the question. I believe the greatest opportunity lies in the greatest challenge, and I believe the challenge that we're facing right now is infrastructure development. So we're trying to penetrate clean cooking energy in the rural and urban regions within sub-Saharan Africa and the greater part of Africa, but without access into the deeper chronic parts of Africa, and this being via infrastructure development, you can't achieve that. So I would say infrastructure development because in sub-Saharan Africa, we have just about 554,000 metric tons of storage with a per capita consumption ranging from 1 kilograms to 5 kilograms per capita consumption. When we compare that to the highest consumers of LPG, for example, the United States, they have on average about 37 million tons of storage facility and a consumption rate of 380 kilograms per capita of LPG. If we're looking to achieve the same height, then we will need to increase our storage facilities. And we can do that via the cross-collaboration which you mentioned. And for that, I'll propose more public-private partnerships. A clear example would be with Sahara Group. Sahara Group, quite recently, have embarked on a joint venture with Petrosi, the Côte d'Ivoire oil and gas, national oil and gas company, for the construction of a 12,000 metric ton storage facility in Côte d'Ivoire. We're also looking to construct a 21,000 metric ton LPG facility in Lagos. All of this is being achieved with collaborations across the government sector, the private, as well as the development agencies. So I believe such cross-collaborations are required in order to achieve the deeper penetration of infrastructure development. And you asked what examples can we see where this has worked. A more recent example would be the dissemination of the COVID vaccines. If you may recall, in the last 2-3 years, the COVID vaccines were distributed and disseminated deep into the rural parts and urban parts across the globe. How was that achieved? That was achieved by the collaborations of donor agencies, the governments working together, the manufacturers, the pharmaceuticals, in such cross-collaboration of all stakeholders within the premise of that industry, we were able to achieve that. And I believe this is because of the depth of the urgency of the COVID-19 virus as at that time. I believe that the same urgency can be applied to the clean cooking energy solutions which we're proposing today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. And let me now go to James. We do understand your work as a CEO under the World Liquid Gas Association. And just from your perspective, how different actors are working together to scale clean cooking solutions across countries, and what lessons can we draw from that?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question, and I should say good evening, everybody, and thank you, first of all, for staying with us for what has been a very, very interesting but long and challenging day. I have 3 minutes, and I will do my best to stay within that 3 minutes. You've heard a lot today about LPG, and I represent what we call the liquid gas sector, which includes mostly LPG, but also increasingly other bio-renewable, recycled synthetic molecules. I don't need to talk, therefore, much about LPG because I think it's recognized as a major part of the solution. What I will say is that the organization that I represent represents over 300 organizations operating in 125 countries in the world. So we are really the authoritative voice of the LPG and liquid gas industry. I also want to say that LPG right now is consumed by over 3 billion people across the world. So it is, I think, fair to say, a very well-established solution. It's not new technology. We've heard the scale of the challenge facing us, and I'm not going to go into that again because we've heard it many, many times. We've also heard that we have solutions, which is great. And today, we've had a pledge of a record amount of money. So you might think that the problem's solved. We can walk away from here, and our job is done. But I think we all understand, and as the second lady from Ghana said today as well, we are far from solving this problem. There is a lot of work left to do. I want to emphasize one thing. More people die from household air pollution in the world than those that die from malaria, HIV, AIDS, and tuberculosis combined. Yet the world puts in about 10 times as much finance to solve those diseases as it does to, as would be required to solve the problem of universal access to clean cooking. Therefore, the amount of finance is really actually very low. Everybody's been saying that. They haven't said peanuts, but it's a small amount of money. If it's a small amount of money, I would contest that financing is not the major issue, okay? We've talked a lot about carbon financing. I would say also that this is mostly a health issue, not a carbon issue. And therefore, I would also say let's not make the perfect become the energy of the good. If we want to solve this problem, we need scale and speed, and that is something that, frankly, LPG does best. You've seen the examples of India, 100 million households converted in a matter of a few years. Indonesia, almost the whole population also converted in a few years. It can be done, but what we need are two things. We need the political will, and this has to come from the very top level of government, so the head of state. We need to have LPG commissions formed, which will actually track this project and this progress, and we need to report back on that on a yearly basis, as well as reporting on where the money is being spent. The other key partnership that we need is the industry. The industry needs to come together, because it's not one company, it's a whole supply chain that needs to coordinate and work together to provide access. The last thing I want to say is, to support this summit, today, the World Liquid Gas Association has established a Cooking for Life Africa task force, which is an industry-wide dedicated group which will promote and coordinate actions for affordable and sustainable LPG use across Africa. It will include developing an LPG roadmap for Africa, which we will release at COP29. I'm not going to talk about the details of what will be in that roadmap, but I think it's important to highlight that it will talk about the critical role of all stakeholders, public and private sector, to reach all of our shared goals. We commit to sharing this data, not just this, but also the operational data, the safety data required for LPG market development. The task force right now comprises Equinor, Petrodec, Oryx Energies, S&P Global, and Total Energies, and we're looking to extend this to other companies. And with that, I'd like to thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you very much. And you have given us an appetite to go to COP29 because we are going to see the new roadmap on that. So thank you so much. We will be there. Lastly, Hassan. He just talked about the successful story of Indonesia. We all know it. We all talk about it. Globally, we have learned a lot from Indonesia, but now we are with you here. Can you tell us, from your perspective, how could government collaborate with industries to improve clean cooking access?
Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to share my country experience in clean cooking. As Indonesia addresses the challenges in implementing the clean cooking, our government recognizes that the collaborative effort required across various sectors. Indonesia's transformation to clean cooking started with replacing kerosene to LPG gas network, and most recently, promoting an induction stove. The transition process is not a single route, but with various approaches, including the renewable-based clean cooking according to community conditions and culture, as well as transition costs. During the conversion, the government provided support with stoves and equipment so that people were not burdened with conversion costs. Through collaboration with the World Bank, the Indonesian Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources promoted the Clean Stove Initiative. Furthermore, the government also promoted the Blue Infrastructure Program. This program is a multi-stakeholder initiative to provide access to renewable energy. In implementing the program, the government works hand in hand with the local non-profit organization, the Energy House Foundation. Today, the Blue Infrastructure Program reached 19 provinces in Indonesia with approximately more than 135,000 beneficiaries, up to 30,000 farmers and trained artisans, and 42 builder partners and cooperatives. To further engage on this agenda, Indonesia believes that tackling the challenge of clean cooking requires a multifaceted approach. It needs to engage industry, intergovernmental organizations, NGOs, and civil society. Together, let us rally behind clean cooking as a catalyst of holistic development, improving lives, preserving our planet, and building a brighter future for generations to come. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing that experience and your very last words where you said to tackle this problem we require a multifaceted approach, so there is no single bullet for this problem, but working together from government to civil society, we can make a difference. So thank you so much. Now, colleagues, this marks the end of
Before you end, Chair, just 1 second.
One word? Okay.
I would like to invite you all, if you would like to understand how our solution works, the smart meter with the cylinder on your way out. There is a cylinder set on the first desk. Kindly pass by. We'll be able to share with you much more information about our solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Right, so we have come to an end of our discussion, but it's difficult to summarize all that, but we know Kacha is now in the distribution, how it has worked in Tanzania, how collaboration and financing is important, how now you have done everything to reduce the cost, and our colleague talks about the need actually to work together, the team and the collaboration. You just brought in now the ideas related to how the US is going, how your association is going to work out in the roadmap, which is going to be unveiled at COP29. And now we have the experience from Indonesia in terms of how to approach this problem. But otherwise, I wish to thank you all. And as I close this panel, it is evident that collaboration between industry and stakeholders in the clean cooking sector hold immense potential. Building on the previous panel, forging partnership remains very crucial to driving transformative advancements for clean cooking access in Africa. As we come to the end, as I said, I extend really heartfelt appreciation for you all, and particularly for Our Lady for joining us today. And I really look forward to continue working with you on this very important agenda. Before I yield to the Laura, I see she's coming here. I wish to thank the organizers once again, and thank you all who have remained in audience until now, until this hour, which is well beyond the time which was set, and I really appreciate your courage and your enthusiasm and your commitment to this very important subject. And before that, can we put our hands together for my panelists, please?
So, thank you very much, Richard. It's been a great and long day for all of us. Certainly for us as co-chairs here at the IEA, we feel extremely proud. Richard mentioned this is an unprecedented day in terms of commitments. I have to say we listened to over 80 people speaking, so thank to all of you that have the courage to stay. I ask you for a bit more patience because I have one announcement to make, and we have two very important speakers to hear from. The announcement to make is the following. You here, and you that have been following online, have heard people speaking. You should also know that there was a lot of work still ongoing behind the scenes, so that by now we can not only announce a chair summary, but also a high-level declaration that has been signed by 130 signatories, governments, industries, funders, CSOs. So thanks to all of you. You will see that online in just a minute. This means that not only we have now a funding commitment, we also have a shared route, a shared travel. So this leads me to the next speakers. Please join me in welcoming Professor Francesco Corvaro, Special Envoy for Climate Change from Italy, who is hosting the G7 and has some announcement for us in terms of next steps. Thank you.
Good evening to everyone, and thanks to invite me. First of all, let me say thank to Dr. Birol and the International Energy Agency for the organization of this amazing meeting, which mobilizes support and traction on a very important topic of high interest for all of us. As you know, Italy strongly believes that access to clean cooking needs to be raised at the top of the global agenda. And this is why we put it at the heart of our renewed partnership with the African continent. As you already know, Africa is one of the main priorities, probably is the biggest priority, for Italy, also in the context of our ongoing G7 presidencies. We are working closely with our African partners on several issues, both bilateral with Mattei Plan and multilaterally. And I would like to emphasize that clean cooking is certainly one of the issues we are addressing, and it is a widespread and cross-cutting issue that touches many aspects. Numbers are astonished and represent a recall to action. Almost 1/3 of global population does not have the means to cook meals in a good way. In particular, around 1 billion of them are in Africa, mainly in sub-Saharan Africa, where this number continued to grow in recent years, as clean cooking access did not keep up the pace with the growing population. Improving access to clean cooking is an urgency, and it means dealing with an issue that has a profound impact on health, development, and security of billions of people around the world. Women and children are the ones who suffer the worst consequences of indoor pollution due to the lack of valuable and sustainable cooking solutions. Lastly, switching to clean cooking will reduce emissions and deforestation, creating at the same time new jobs and development, both key features at the basis of the just energy transition we all want to pursue. These are the crucial aspects why Italy believes that a multilateral commitment in this regard is long overdue, and we gladly join the final declaration of the summit. Italy, therefore, looks forward with great interest to the result of the summit, which I am sure will also provide us with valuable insight for our G7 presidencies. We are in fact working with our partners, also thanks to the support of the International Energy Agency, on an initiative called Energy for Growth in Africa, which also addresses the issue of clean cooking. I would like to be very clear. Italy is working hard to bring this issue on the table of G7 leaders. As you know, Italy also intends to develop relationship with Africa based on a non-predatory and mutually beneficial approach. Bearing this in mind, we are also continuing on the involvement of both the Italian and African private sector. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank the representatives of some of the major players already active in this field who are attending today's summit. I assure you that Italy will spare no effort to work with our African partners to prosper and grow together, intending to seize all the opportunities offered by the transition to the clean energy system. I wish to thank once again the International Energy Agency for making this summit possible. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Francesco. It's wonderful to hear the commitment of Italy for the next G7, and we look forward to the summit that is actually happening in just 1 month, and hopefully we'll see some deliverables on clean cooking. Thank you. And now let me welcome the last but not least speaker from Brazil. The president of the G20 this year is Mr. Joaquim Silva, Deputy Permanent Representative to the International Organizations Brazil. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you. I'll try to be brief because I know that the day was long today, but discussions are very interesting on this very important topic. But first of all, I would like on behalf of the Brazilian government to convey to the hosts and to participants in this summit President Lula's regrets for not being able to be here today. The First Lady, Mrs. Da Silva, had meant to attend as Brazil's representative today, but both she and the President were unable to travel these days. As many of you are surely aware, the south of Brazil is facing, as we speak, severe floods, extreme weather events, and both the president and his wife are personally involved in the efforts of the whole of the Brazilian government to help those affected and provide them with the support they need. Climate change has become palpable, as these and other tragic events illustrate. Ladies and gentlemen, improving women's lives, fighting poverty and hunger, reducing emissions, and providing energy access are clear priorities of the Brazilian government. Brazil believes that universal access to modern methods of cooking is a humanitarian and moral issue that should mobilize the entire international community. A solution of relatively low cost has the potential to improve billions of lives and create an enabling environment for achieving the 2030 Agenda and all of its sustainable development goals. Promoting clean cooking also makes perfect sense as a strategy for tackling climate change. Replacing archaic forms of cooking would generate a reduction in emissions equivalent to the amount of greenhouse gases produced in 2022 by the maritime and aviation sectors combined. In an unprecedented climate emergency like the one we face, we need to invest in solutions that will combine the three pillars of sustainable development: the social, the economic, and the environmental. Promoting clean cooking does just that. The fact that 2.3 billion people in the world still don't have access to clean cooking is a stark reminder that we must strive to promote an effective energy transition that does not ignore the specific challenges affecting developing countries, particularly the poorest ones. We need to accelerate the energy transition, and in doing so, we cannot reproduce the inequalities that exist in the current energy landscape. Having said that, Brazil commends the International Energy Agency, Tanzania, and Norway and the African Development Bank for bringing clean cooking in Africa to the center of the debate about energy transition. We therefore endorse the Clean Cooking Declaration proposed by the IEA, but we want to do more than that. As the current president of the G20, Brazil proposes that the G20 member countries renew their commitment to advancing universal access to clean cooking through policy, investment, and partnerships. Building on the work of previous presidencies, Brazil has invited G20 member countries to discuss clean cooking from an energy transition perspective during the Energy Transitions Working Group meetings. Brazil hopes to count on unequivocal support from G20 countries in endorsing a roadmap that can help governments, donors, and financial institutions to take action that will lead to achieving universal access to clean cooking as soon as possible. But given the fact that access to clean cooking can contribute not only to achieving SDG 7, but to achieving several other sustainable development goals, the Brazilian G20 presidency is also committed to including clean cooking as a topic for action in two other crucial and important G20 initiatives this year: the Task Force for the Global Mobilization Against Climate Change, that's one, and the Task Force for a Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, that's the second one. We believe that this spotlight can contribute to create new and effective financing opportunities for clean cooking solutions, as well as more attention from policymakers and decision makers when allocating resources. As a final comment, I would like to say that Brazil is also committed to bringing this important issue to the attention of the G20 leaders next November in Rio in the summit of the group. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Silva. So we also have a commitment from Brazil, and thanks very much from all of us to bring this important topic throughout the G20 up to the Leader Summits. This leads us to a close of a very dense day, unprecedented certainly for all of us. And I would like to ask all of you one last and loud applause for the wonderful IEA team that allowed this to happen today. Thank you all. And with this, I pronounce today's proceeding closed. Thank you.